said Yellow Springs Exempted Village School District, Greene County, Ohio, to the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during my continuance in said office and until my successor is chosen and qualified.
I will.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll move now to 3, the adoption of our consent calendar, the administration portion of that. And I actually have a small procedural question here. Do we take the motion first, then fill out the positions, or do we fill out the positions first, then hear the motion?
I would probably go with this, the length of it, go through everything first and then have some
And have the
motions so that
motion?
everybody's all in agreement
Okay.
before.
That seems
someone
good then.
motions.
So let's go ahead to 3.1. We need to fill some positions. There are 4 of them there, Treasurer Pro Tem, Student Achievement Liaison, Legislative Liaison, and the Village Council Liaison. You can see in the parentheses there the people who filled these positions in the last year. So do I have anybody who would like to be the Treasurer Pro Tem? Do we have a-
No, I mean, it's fine with me to keep doing it. I think
you.
over
So, good.
unless somebody else would like to.
That's what it sounds like, a yes to me.
Okay, right.
Good.
I don't want to be stepping on toes if someone wants it.
Steve McQueen was our Student Achievement Liaison last year. Is this a position you'd like to continue in?
Only unless someone would like to take it, but I have no problem remaining.
Go for it.
Sure.
Okay,
All right.
there we are, Steve McQueen. Our Legislative Liaison.
Yeah, I like that.
Would anybody, is there any discussion? Okay, good. No, I love this efficiency.
You should jump in on the next one.
And our Village Council Liaison, that was being filled by Sean Creighton, who of course stepped down back in August. So Village Council Liaison?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
TJ. Good, that's 3.1. We have board committees, which need to be filled. So we'll go through those. The Student Review Board.
14 years and counting.
Is that good or bad?
That's a strong case.
I wouldn't mind if you don't.
Would you like to do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I want to do a lot of more student stuff. So.
Okay. YSEE, Sylvia, that's been you. Would you like to stay there?
I'm happy to continue unless someone else.
Unless somebody else?
says that. I'm fine continuing with
Okay.
that.
Now this one we'll probably fight over, the Insurance
I'm
Committee.
not making eye contact with anyone over this one.
There will be some work for this committee this year.
Insurance.
Oh, boy. We shouldn't have said that beforehand.
Because of the
Negotiations.
negotiations, yeah.
Yeah, and actually probably in relatively short order.
So,
Okay, TJ, that looks like you.
It's a month or two.
Sure, I was gonna say, is it also,
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, good. The Wellness Committee. Again,
I'm fine with that.
staying with that, good. The YSPSF Committee, I was the board representative there. I'm happy to continue to do that.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. The Faculty Advisory Committee.
I'm okay to do that, Steve, since you've offered to do other things, but
Sure.
is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
because that way, yeah.
Yeah, we want to make sure that these are balanced so that nobody either skirts this or gets too loaded up. Our crisis plan, which is an every 3-year, which means this will, do I understand that parentheses correct, that it will not meet?
Until 2021.
Where would,
Oh, I'll be all over that.
That's leadership.
Do you want to,
Why does it come on?
so this is, what's that?
No, I'm just thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it's different than what it used to be, and so, yeah, we need to kind of reevaluate what that looks like probably over the next 12 months, because the rules have changed around it significantly. and,
Okay.
It's not the same as it used to be. So,
All right, well then thank you, TJ, for volunteering.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
yeah, so.
And then our Negotiations Committee plus an alternate.
so, it was my understanding right now that we were sort of working out that a little bit because of the way the schedule shifted and people's availability. But whatever works is fine with me. I mean, obviously Sean's name on here isn't gonna work anymore, but.
Well, that's certainly right, yeah.
I'm happy to serve.
I'm sorry, which one are we at?
Negotiations.
Yeah, I am as well,
Okay,
so,
yeah.
yeah.
So then I would be the alternate, yeah, and
Okay.
and then maybe I'd be more available once I know what the schedule is.
Right.
Just since it shifted from what it was going to be, it was getting into an area where the schedule was really bad for me, so thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And thank you.
No, and actually, the February, March timeframe was
Okay.
decent for me, so.
3.2.2, committee appointments that are not required, but which we have done in the past, our policy committee and our open enrollment committee.
I'd like to do open enrollment.
Like to do open enrollment? You want to do that? Do we need 2 on that?
We typically have 2.
Is that for purposes of,
Um,
all, 2 of us don't necessarily show up to the meeting, right?
yeah, you don't have to.
Okay. But one or the,
As
okay.
long as one can, yeah.
So can we do 2 Steves?
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve Squared?
Steve squared? And then the policy committee.
Happy to continue
And
to do that.
I'm happy to be on there too.
Okay.
Sure.
Wonderful.
Wow, cool.
TJ, you got a lot, man.
Do I?
Yeah, you have no idea.
No, don't let them scare you, do.
He is like, oh, I'm alright, don't say
Okay, I'm
that.
exactly right.
Yeah, that ain't the case. Remember that
Did I forget to step back?
TJ does work 20 hours a day. You know, so.
We'll be fine.
So then the next several items we'll just roll through at hearing, assuming that these are okay unless we hear some objections. 3.3, we confirm that, again, we'll keep our meetings to this at the second Thursday of each month here at 7 p.m. 3.4, our board compensation remains the same at 125 per meeting. I don't know when the last time that actually was changed. Our mileage rates for compensation for school business, our board affiliations listed there, appointment
You do
of...
not need to go through the whole thing.
Fair enough, okay, well, unless I hear any objection to any of these or questions that want to be pulled out,
I can make a comment if you want, Steve.
I don't mind, but go ahead.
It might be helpful to the board. So,
By all means then, yes.
Yeah.
3.13,
3.13.
we removed John Podgorski from the list. So
Right.
just
Really? That's
FYI.
like a, wow,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Can you repeat which one that was?
So 3.13, the
The
attorneys.
lawyers.
Okay, gotcha.
John was our previous attorney several years ago, and we kind of carried him through last year, just in case, you know. But I don't know that we'll be using him this year much.
Okay.
So, which letter?
3.13.
No, but which letter?
It
Oh, no,
would
no,
it would have been.
Oh, there was
the-
just a
here.
person.
He was
Yeah.
there previous year.
It would've
Oh,
been
gotcha,
another,
that's
yeah.
what's going,
Yeah,
okay.
that, nothing's changing. Yeah.
Okay,
And then we
What you
have
have.
to do 3.14 by signing protocols too, right?
Right.
So, but
Uh,
otherwise, yep.
so do I hear a motion to pass this consent calendar 3.1 through 3.18?
So moved.
Second.
Can we call the roll on that, please?
Steve,
Yes.
TJ,
Yes.
Aida,
Yes.
Sylvia,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes. Okay, so shall we take a pause here to sign our board protocols, or do you want to do that, shall we do that at the end?
Maybe at that recess.
At the recess, very good, okay.
Was that okay?
So now we'll go on to 4.1, our budget hearing presentation.
I did. All of that, 'cause I didn't make any copies. Okay. I briefly explained what the tax budget is last meeting and why it has to be done. And it, what happens is the budget, I get the first 2 pages. Oh, that's hard to see.
It's really, we can turn them on the lens.
Yeah, maybe with this, let's see.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Oh,
Because I didn't make any copies, because I find this to be a waste of paper, and I'm very sorry, with all due respect, but, we get the first 2 pages from the Greene County Auditor, and they're just basically saying, this is what we anticipate your levies to, take in each year, or during this 2019 calendar year, and what the, rates will be. The 4.3 inside millage is the millage that is directed to us. Inside millage is the one that also goes to like the Village of Yellow Springs and any other taxing entity. in the area has inside millage. Ours is 4.3, which is a pretty good amount. And then the rest of the difference for that would be the 16 or 15.7 that is, makes up the 20 mil floor. So I haven't gotten our exact rates yet to see where we're at with the 20 mil floor, but I'm guessing that we're gonna be really close to being at the 20 mil floor because the rate that is estimated for us to collect is a little bit higher than last year, which would probably mean we hit that floor and then our rates went up. The emergency levies are both of those levies listed together. They do have separate millage rates, which are on the next page. The bond levy, I've already told you, we approved the amounts and rates last month. That's going to be 2.05 mils in 2019, and the permanent improvement levy is going to be 1.2 mils, which is basically, or that's factored down as well. But I won't know that until I get those rates from the county auditor's office. But the emergency levies, those rates are set, and the bond levy. So if you go to page 2, that's just listing out these right here. You can see when they were voted in, like 1969, 72, 63, 64. They're just all of the different levies that make up the 20 mil floor. If you add all of those up, if you keep scrolling down a little bit more, those add up to 47.5 at the full rate. We are factored back down to 20. And that's really factored back down to 15.7 because it does not include the 4.3 inside mills. So the full rate, 47.5, factored down to approximately 15.7, should bring in $2,280,000 plus the 4.3 that the inside millage will bring in. The emergency levy, the 1.06 million is going to be 7.4 mils, PI 1.2, and then the other emergency levy, the newer one, is going to be 6.47. So those are what those rates are going to be for 2019. And that's what the county auditor provides. I have no input with that. I have to build my budget and my revenue around what they say we're going to get. The next page is just a page I do just for informational purposes to let the board and community know what levies we have outstanding and when they expire, how long they're collected. It's just a nicer way to put what our levies are, so it's not even part of the tax budget. Okay, the next page.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
One of the things that we've heard the community, especially when we've gone around and done new levies and things of that nature, is that I've heard community members quote the 68.92, that's what we're levied at. It's important to know that we're not actually taxed at 68.92 mils, we're taxed at the 20 mil floor. So the 47 mils is actually 20, realistically. And so essentially, you know, we're not actually taxed at 68 at all. It's all been factored down to 20. And so I think it's important for folks to know that that's not the rate we're actually taxed at. The effective millage is like a lot lower. Sorry.
Right, and I will, I've had sitting on my desk the 2018 tax rates for all the surrounding school districts, and I've done that comparison before. And you have to get that information off of the Ohio Department of Taxation website, and they're almost always like a year behind. So I'll report on it probably maybe next month because I've been wanting to do that. It's going to seem a little dated, but it's really about the newest information that I can get. Because some other districts have new levies that they have put on, so that it makes where we are in the ranking order different. Plus our rates have gone down, so I'm going to do that and present it here soon. Okay, this is basically also from the county auditor's office. They need to know what our debt payments are so that they can assess the proper amount of bond retirement taxes. I just basically estimate, I know for sure what our payments are going to be, but then I have to report that to the county auditor's office. They set the rates, and then we still have to put in the tax budget even though we're really already done for this year. So that's based on a calendar year basis. Okay, so the next page is basically the same thing, permanent improvement fund. That is, we are looking at a fiscal year basis for this, and what I have right now in there, because it's approximately $145,000. Our cash carryover from last year was $164,000. So going into this year, we have $164 plus the $140 that we'll get. But we've also talked about some roofing projects, so I did budget them in there. But I had to kind of lower the amounts just to make sure we'd almost break even. So if we do possibly the high school gym roof this fiscal year, we could spend potentially almost all of our permanent improvement money, or we will just take some other capital projects that may come up and take them out of the general fund. So I put that in there, we're gonna basically spend it down, and then I'm just basically going more status quo for the next couple of years unless we find some other projects that we need to do, which could be continued roofing projects.
So that's the 288.
Yes, that's what I have in the budget this year. And then the next page is really long. It's just all of our other funds. It'll have in there our principals funds, of which the principals, it comes from like picture proceeds, oh gosh, I can't say it, just some fundraising stuff that they do and other things. They put that money into the principals fund and they use that for things like field trips and just things that benefit all the kids collectively. We have a few grants in there. Our athletic fund, it's like, oh gosh, I think it's 16,000 in the hole right now. It's pretty bad. We probably have done all of the ordering for the fall and winter sports, so all we would have left is spring, and then pretty much all the rest of the money is going to come in is what else we get from basketball proceeds. But yeah, it's $16,445 in the red right now, so that's not looking too good. So we're going to have to really start talking and meeting and figure out what we're going to do with that. Our revenue is just very low this year. The other district managed activities are a lot of things that we do in-house that are either student run or teacher run, and they're very specific of what they're for. And then we have our grant allocations. Some are from the state, some are from the federal government, and those are approximately what we'll have during the next fiscal year. If you go down, this is where I made a change. We had previously had, I inherited this, but we had an 003 bus fund, and that's where some money was put aside to spend on a bus. And it's also been a sale of assets, so if we sold anything, we put that money in there to use towards more capital projects. What I did is, what I had briefly put in my cover page for my monthly report is that we had talked about setting some money aside, and I really stressed the number one priority right now is probably a bus, and then the roof. And then the roof we're already budgeting out of our regular permanent improvement, but if we need to, we can still use general funds. And then I'm taking $30,000 before the end of this year, and then next year, and then the next year we probably use $30,000 more and buy a bus. So because that's a total of $90,000. So that is, subject to debate if anybody doesn't think that that's a good idea. But I went ahead and did it because I wanted to show the county auditor that we are thinking of these things, and these are the projects that we have coming up that are an absolute priority. We just had a meeting about the track and all of that, the improvement to that whole area. I don't know where that's going to fit into this yet, so I can't really put any numbers in there yet, but this is something that we're really looking at doing some things now, like some fencing now and some other work now, and then getting some quotes to see what we can do now and what we can do more of on a project schedule. Are you?
Just whenever it's time, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, since you just mentioned the track and the way I'm looking at it on here, I'm confused about theater arts / track. Like, why is that one category?
I think on my,
Yeah, they are.
the reason is because when we do the tax budget, we may have 10 005 funds that all are separated,
Okay.
but for the tax budget, they don't care. They just want to see all the 005s together. But on my books, for theater arts capital improvement, right now we have $388.88. And then for the track replacement fund, we have $99.23.
Okay.
So those are added up, and we have another 005 for the playground replacement that happened at Mills Lawn. It's got $706.
Okay.
That probably I could talk to Matt about, and we could could spend that down, because we probably should spend it, it's probably, part of that was the insurance proceeds from the tree falling on the playground equipment, so, that's why it's like that. All the other funds are like that too, that's why bus fund slash
So
sale of
somewhere
assets
else,
is the same.
they're more.
There, yes, and that is on your monthly report.
Thank you. Okay.
On your monthly report, the first thing I do after the cover page is show you the detail of every single fund.
Thank you.
So it's provided every month and, you know, it's, I think it's exciting, but you might not.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
No, I would.
Okay, and then we have, some of these are really dead funds from things that were here a long time ago that I just don't know what to do with. We had Spectrum Magazine, that was reviving a bit, and now it's not. So I'm not real sure what we'll do with that. I did get with Jack, I think late last year or early this year, and I told you, I made a list of some monies that you could spend. I think if we could spend them appropriately with what they were first defined for, and you and Julie were gonna work on that, and I was gonna send you a reminder, actually, as I was sending the one about Power of the Pen, because it's not an urgency
Right.
or anything, but it's something that would be nice to get done at the end of this year and clean up the book some. The Deeper Learning Training Center, that one's kind of tough because this year we actually started spending more of the money towards professional development. So I don't know exactly what those expenditures will be by the end of the year, but I think we've spent over $7,000 this year so far. And then I don't know if we're having more or less visitors. Last year I think we took in $13,000 or $14,000, so I just estimated 12. Private purpose trust funds, those are what we have right now for the Board of Education Scholarship Fund, which has like $650 in it. And then when Wally Sykes passed away, there was a fund put together to be used for project-based learning, and that has, I think, around $1,200 in it. And so those are, I don't know what we really do with this scholarship fund, if it's something we want to look at doing again, it's only got $650, so you probably could only use it once or twice. And then the Sykes Memorial money, I will probably talk with Mario about if they want to purchase any PBL stuff this year, what they want to do with that money, because it is an expendable trust. You can spend the principal of it. And then we have Principal Support Fund, which is basically the principals, the money that they can put aside towards doing things for staff gifts and stuff without using the general fund budget money. And then we have our student activity accounts, which are mostly comprised of the every year's class of accounts, and that's where we run the trips through, and they do all the fundraising, and then we also have the student council and a couple other things that come out of that. So next page is, this is where our auditor has a personal curiosity and wants to see any general fund monies that we are moving to other funds. So I showed what we did in 2017-18 actual, which was just making the lunchroom whole, making the athletic fund whole, and then any grants are in the red, I moved money to and already paid that back. And then for this year, I put basically doing the same thing if our cafeteria fund runs in the red, but we've been working with Sodexo and trying to see, what happened last year, why did we suddenly run in the red when we've been breaking even. So we're looking at that, but in case I have to put any money there, I've budgeted for that. I budgeted for the athletic fund at $16,000 right now. We'll probably have to talk about, if we want to put more towards that. We're really subsidizing the fund a lot because it's only spending, $40,000 to $45,000 a year, and that's a big subsidy there. So I think we really need to look at revenues. And then I put in the bus purchase fund, and then I did it for 2 more years and just show basically the exact same thing. I don't anticipate anything new unless we decide to move money over to a capital improvement fund to do any type of projects. And then the next page is just more detail about debt service fund, and that's just for the county auditor. And that is the tax budget in a nutshell. We attach the 5-year forecast with that, and that's how the auditor sees how we're spending our general funds. And I give him the actual forecast plus all of the graphs and all of the notes that go with it. So he has all the detail that he needs. The budget commission reads that over, and then we have our tax budget hearing if they request our presence. If they don't, then they don't have a hearing, they don't have any questions. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any comments, questions about any of this?
Just appreciation.
Yep, indeed. We do this every year at this time. So can I have a motion at 4.2, the adoption of the tax budget for fiscal year 2020?
So moved.
I'll second.
We'll call the roll then.
TJ,
Yes.
Aida,
Yep.
Sylvia,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Very good. And thus concludes the organizational part of our board meeting right at 7. So with apologies to those of you who have just walked in, we're going to take a 5-minute recess and start the regular meeting, therefore just a little bit late. So I'm going to gavel that meeting closed and thank you. And we're going to sign our board protocols during the recess. I don't have them.
Oh, they were on that.
Were they?
No, they were on the,
They were separate,
They're in the
they're in the
emails.
packet,
in the
email,
packet,
but
email.
Matt,
What?
well, Stephanie. Is there, we gotta print a copy of those protocols if we don't have them.
I'll run and grab it. Go ahead. We'll do that safe part of our speech to advocacy speech is really today.
Well, in the middle, as we're waiting, are you gonna?
I'm gonna run now.
Oh, okay.
It's not in there?
No, I didn't.
No, I thought it was in our packet.
it was in the packet, yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that we just reprinted.
Oh, gotcha.
Well, so do we want to actually wait till the end of the meeting?
Sure.
Why don't, I don't want you to dash over.
I'm sure I should do it at the end of the meeting.
Well, I suppose that's true.
Yeah, I'll just run it real quick.
So can I,
Just walk, you can walk, Stephanie.
I don't think it's
Right.
I don't want you to have it quoted. Okay.
the purpose for
Yeah.
They got it.
But he was just, this is, I think, executive was representing Now I want to point out for your things.
Yeah, what's your regular text?
Oh, is this that project? Oh, that's
So she's doing
Hey, currently, so you're building that in, you know, as a new business. So this is my part number 11, which is slated.
mixed race, African American, culture, but that's,
It's doing a little bit, yeah.
So it's trying
We're
to
kind of looking forward to it.
have equal rights.
They also, they did not.
I like it.
Rights for minority
I'm not
culture. So these are,
Yeah.
what's that?
No.
Over
So I just thought that
I don't know.
we're not very long, it's not way less time than.
Selena.
Yeah.
That was killed.
About this, so I'll leave that with you, as I said.
Okay.
We go over the.
But then this is like a rose gold, it's gonna have the country flag, flowers painted in there.
This is so much more than I thought.
Yeah, so, like I said, we're not exactly. That's because
Shoes for the stars in California.
it doesn't make sense, but there it is. And especially.
He said this.
Oh, you're doing the Yellow Then you know what you're doing, you know why.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I'm not doing it.
Oh, cool. You're signing.
Yeah, usually about it.
No, thank you. I will. That's good. Or maybe that's very good.
Then your name's in the minutes.
Yeah, I was just saying, okay.
Yeah, I see.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So it's a local school, but Lori's running the speech and debate class. So she is having to do
those kids, yeah.
Project.
So you're saying that we're gonna do it like.
I don't know, I don't know what the team is.
No, I'm just here just in case.
Good. Probably Matt. Yes.
I don't want to make sure I didn't accidentally
So
schedule.
we are signing our board report. Oh, no.
But how do you do that before? Don't laugh.
Good.
Thanks for helping me get. Oh, you're welcome.
Are you guys ready?
I grabbed the black pen and actually did red. So I
Thank you.
threw that away.
Because that outcome always debate.
Okay, now.
I think you should, I'm kind of excited about it.
That's what I had. I mean, I've had a friend twice.
If a few
Nice. Wow. Oh my gosh.
We made some help.
Did it work?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Our kids were excited.
I was very happy to be like, yeah, not because of the career trip,
That's
yeah.
really cool, thank you. Nice man.
Thank you. It was love at Christmas in our house.
Thank you very much.
We may be still tracking.
I
tried to stop it, but I don't care.
Okay, sorry.
No, I'm just running late on.
I haven't
I
danced.
just wanted to throw that out there. 12 days of Christmas right now. For me, it's gonna take me to like the 27th day of Christmas to get. I'm still.
Arena con.
I'm way behind. Okay. Thank you. Signing. And dating.
Great is one of them. That'd be.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Oh, I think I
There is that. Totally. I don't know.
What's the other thing?
So I'd like to call us back to order for our regularly scheduled January board meeting. And just as a reminder, these monthly board meetings are where the board conducts its necessary and legally obligated business. I want to welcome those of you that have arrived since we started our organizational meeting at 6:30. Thank you so much for coming. And I'm going to move straight into the preliminary 1.5. I need a motion to approve the minutes of our last board meeting on December 13th.
So moved.
Second.
Corrections, edits, comments, anything for those minutes? Call the roll, please.
Aida,
Yes.
Sylvia,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
TJ.
Yes.
Great. Item number 5, I'd like to acknowledge the communications the board has received. We have 3 letters that have come in this month. 5.2, I'd like at this time to invite any community members to come up for comments. We're delighted always to hear from people at our board meetings, but a reminder that just for efficiency's sake and fairness sake, we limit those comments to 3 minutes. Does anybody want to address the board at this time? Please. So we'd ask you to come up to the microphone. We want to make sure you've signed in, and then identify yourself to the folks at home when you give your statement, please.
I don't know how to use mine.
No, you're doing great. Perfect.
You can pull it.
Yeah, twist it.
There you go.
Perfect.
Good evening, my name is Melissa Tinker, and I'm a parent of a 4th grader and a 6th grader at Mills Lawn. I'm here this evening with 6th grade students Connor Anderson and Kian Barker to represent the Yellow Springs Middle School speech team. This team was founded in spring 2018 by Coach Jackie Anderson with assistance from high school speech and debate coach Brian Hausch. The team currently consists of 6 students who have competed in 3 tournaments and will compete in 2 additional tournaments this year, including our very own inaugural Yellow Springs tournament on January 26th, and we hope the state tournament near Cleveland in March. These students have worked incredibly hard to master skills, including research and writing, public speaking, and presentation. As a parent, I have witnessed my son, Kian, gain skills as a writer, researcher, speaker, as well as confidence and a sense of camaraderie and belonging as a part of this team. I'm incredibly grateful to Coach Jackie Anderson for offering her skills, presence, and encouragement. Her unflagging energy, dedication, and support have been an inspiration to these students. No one can demonstrate the achievements of our middle school speech and debate team better than the students themselves. I'm proud to introduce team members Connor Anderson and Kian Barker, both 6th graders, who will entertain you with short selections from their speeches. This year, Connor is competing in the declamation category, where he interprets another person's speech. Connor recently tied for 2nd place in the Beaver Creek tournament. After Connor, we will hear from Kian. He is competing in the original oratory category, where he writes his own speech. Kian tied for 1st in the Beaver Creek tournament. Thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting this program.
Fantastic.
Great. Do you want me to give you a signal at a certain time?
No, it's fine.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah, no.
So should I just start?
Why don't you again introduce yourself?
All right.
No, right to the microphone.
Save the mic, thanks.
My name is Connor Anderson, and I'm 12 years old, and I'm in 6th grade. Since the year of infinity BC, people have been doing some pretty dumb things. And out of the 7 billion souls on this planet, about 7 billion don't recognize how dumb their actions really are. But surely there's nothing wrong with impulsiveness, right? Wrong. Impulsiveness is taken too lightly by society. Every single day, people's lives are ruined by a single act that was not thought through. Don't assume that what you initially think is always the right answer. Take the time to re-evaluate your thoughts and decisions, and you will be much better off in the future. Are we ever going to stop being impulsive? That's like asking Ryan Gosling if he'll ever stop being gorgeous. It's just not going to happen. No matter what any of us do, impulsive thinking is in our blood. We just can't get rid of it. Just like we can't get rid of Justin Bieber. Trust me, I've tried. Being reckless, however, is a problem society cannot ignore. Thinking before acting, rather than vice versa, can lead to better decisions, outcomes, and ultimately better lives. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kian Barker. I'm a Mills Lawn student, and I'm doing an original oratory speech on why comics are art and literature. I will begin. I was always an avid reader, and I have forever read one type of book over all others. In fact, even the first book that I ever read was this type of book. I have been, I am, and I always will be a huge comic book nerd. I am even a comic book author and illustrator. But this interest and hobby of mine has never been taken seriously. I mean, look at the name. Comic book is a name that suggests, of course, comic relief. A friend of mine thought that comics could not be literature, and to an extent, art. He said that they could not have the complexity, the layers of emotion, the depth and meaning of a regular book. And I think that that is just untrue. Comics can be as complex and deep as books, and I will prove this to you today. First, we will be bitten by a radioactive spider full of information as we take a wall-crawling romp through the origin story of the comic book. Then, we will go up, up, and away into the greater meaning of the comic book and use our X-ray vision to see through the facade that comics are trashy books for children. And finally, we will hulk out and smash into the conclusion that comics are art and literature. From the writers and the artists to the characters they create, comics are definitely more than they are perceived to be by non-comic readers. So with that, I hope that you are convinced that comics are art and literature. Thanks for listening. Excelsior!
We have one more student.
Oh,
Yeah. Yay!
I'd like to say something about
Do you want to say something too?
if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you.
So, you can come with me. So, before, I'm Heather Horton, this is Peyton. And before she shares her part of the speech, and we all to know, she has had an IEP for speech since the 3rd grade. And this has been the most life-changing experience for her to do the speech group. She came in 4th place, her first time ever. It has improved her confidence. I still wish I had to say.
Great.
Somewhere in the world right now, a doctor's saying, "Congratulations!" And parents are thinking, "Crap, what do we do now?" Fortunately, as the child ages, parents will figure out how to pass on their own philosophies in a list of rules by which to live. A Fistful of Rules by Dominic Augustin. Every family has one. In my family, we have my father's Fistful 5 rules. Rule number 1, don't put that in your mouth. Whether it's the worm I ate as a child or the cigarette I may consider smoking as a teenager, the rule still applies. If we can remember to carry these rules with us, they can help us throughout our lives. Unfortunately, as we grow up, we tend to forget the lessons that formed the framework of who we are. This is unacceptable. Some rules should not be forgotten. I decided to write myself a letter so I would remember the lessons in my father's Fistful rules, some of the most crucial points in my life. I hope I can remember these rules. If I do, I believe I have lived a long and happy life. And on that fateful day, when a doctor looks at my wife and says, "Congratulations!" and I might say, "Oh crap," I'll also gather my Fistful of rules and say, "Thanks, Dad, thank you."
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all
That's
so much.
fantastic. Thank you so much for coming, but the price you have to pay for presenting in front of us is to answer some questions that we might have, if that's okay. And I'd like to start just by asking, so was this your first year for all of you in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you look back on this now, what do you think was the most difficult thing about this and the work that you've been doing?
Well, for declamation speakers like me and Peyton, it was probably the memorization aspect.
Oh,
because
okay.
that took the longest amount of time, and it was like, if you memorized a single word wrong, then it was going to be really tough to get it right.
And for original orators like me, there aren't any others in the group, it was probably writing and drafting my speech, and I took a very long time doing that.
How many drafts do you think you did?
I don't know. If I looked at the Google Docs,
Yeah.
I'd say like 20 or something.
Yeah, for me, it would be like what Connor said, like the memorization, because I mean, I just have trouble with that,
Mhm.
and also pronouncing words.
Mm-hmm. Enunciating carefully, yeah. Fantastic.
Does performance count? Like, do you have to perform everything that you're actually speaking about?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
It shows, that's why I wanted
Yeah,
to make, that's why I was
absolutely.
wondering if you were being judged on.
Yes, we're
Awesome.
being judged. That's how we get places in our tournaments. And we usually have like 2 judges, and the other people in our category watch as well.
And for the original, did everyone do comics, or is
No,
it
it was just
something
me.
you chose to choose?
Yeah, I actually have like a comic strip published in the newspaper, and I'm really into comics. I read a lot of it.
So you were, that was for real when you said you were a comic nerd?
Yes, I
Yeah,
read that.
okay. That's excellent.
Writer and illustrator.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Anybody else?
How
So what's
do
your
you-
favorite comic?
I'm into Ms. Marvel. It's like, yeah, it's really good. We do explain it right now.
For those of you who are memorizing to present, how is it to pick what you're going to try to memorize and then share with everybody?
Well, for me, there's this website that our coach Jackie showed us. So I was looking at it, and you keep on reading like almost like the first page, and if you really like it, you keep on like reading it more and more. That's how I found mine. I was like, yeah, this is the one. I understand it. I believe I can do that.
Also, sometimes, because we have a 10-minute, 30-second limit on our speeches, sometimes we have to cut out a few parts. And to kind of do that, we just see if there are sentences that could be cut out and doesn't really add much to the narrative, such as, for example, with Kian's, if they add to the argument that comics are art and literature. And if they don't, then you can cut them out and save a few seconds.
Yeah, I had like this entire section on the history of comics that needed to be cut down. Yeah, I went into that like a great deal. It added like 2 whole minutes to it.
How would you recommend other students get involved? Like what made you get involved, I guess? We'll start with that, and then what do you think you could get other students to want to do this?
Well, for me, first of all, in 5th grade it was when you really started to sign up, and I was like, okay, try new things, because I don't really have anything to do at home. So I tried.
Sounds like a whole other speech.
So I tried it, but 5th grade I didn't really do anything. But then Miss Jackie actually motivated me to get on it. So one day I showed up at the meeting and I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I knew that if I wasn't happy with it or anything, that I could just like quit and go on. But I want to stick with it.
Is there anybody that's debating on the debate side?
Mackenzie wanted to come. She's doing it over at the junior high.
Okay, great. Yeah.
She's doing it and she enjoys it over there.
There aren't really many like middle school debaters, I don't really know, but I know that there are a lot of debaters. There, quite a few joined recently, but like a lot of them are not middle schoolers. I know some probably are, but like a lot of them aren't. They're high school level.
Okay.
Right. Melissa, did you say that there was going to be an event, a Yellow Springs event?
Yeah, there'll be a tournament in Yellow Springs on the 26th of January.
26th of January.
We certainly will need volunteers, so if anyone's
26th of
interested in
January.
judging.
Where's that happening?
I believe that
Everywhere.
Okay, everywhere, okay.
Mills Lawn, high school.
Is it here too?
Yeah, it's going to be
Okay, wow.
pretty much every available space in the
Wow.
district.
I need 3 large locations.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There's a nice story in the paper about it too, and also encouragement to volunteer.
It's great.
And still seeking students to join, 6th grade through 12th. So, yeah.
Jack's going to talk a little bit more about this in his report, but I think I really appreciate you all coming in to speak today. It's a big deal. This has been kind of a dream of ours for several years now, and we just got the program started last year at the high school level, and I never even thought about it, middle school program as well, and trying to grow that. I was a speech in debate myself in college. It made all the difference in my life completely, similar to your daughter. I think I totally resonate with that, and that's exactly why we did this. Was so kids like you all could really, kind of build your confidence in areas maybe that you don't feel as confident in, and then really, not only now are you, you've overcome a lot of your disabilities with this. Now you're like a shining star. So you've gone out there and now you're way on the top end of this work, and that's super powerful. And I think we can do that with a lot of kids. So I want to encourage more and more kids to do this.
Yeah.
And so the board approved a stipend for this a couple years ago, and I think this is the fruits of that sort of experience. And it was an expensive stipend, by the way, but but actually, truthfully, we're still not paying that enough considering. And actually, it's a good time to say, probably a good time to start thinking about adding an assistant speech and debate coach to add, so that way Ms. Jackie can get paid too. I think that's probably important. So something we'll talk about for
And
sure.
just, by the way, Mills Lawn represents 2/3 or more of the current speech and debate team. I know it's growing. It's just started to grow like in the past week or two, but Mills Lawn at these tournaments, it's like 6 6th graders and then 2 or 3 high schoolers. So like we really held down, a lot at these tournaments, and now it's starting to like really grow, and we're really proud of that. But it takes a lot of courage for these 6th graders to represent the district, and they've done a great job. So
Well, thank you all again for
Yeah,
coming. This
thank
was
you.
this
Thank you
is
so
a
much.
treat.
Yeah.
And this meeting is going to go downhill fast.
Does that mean we get to leave?
You do
Yes.
not have to stay. You're welcome to.
You can run.
Not have to.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
That followed us.
That was great. Yes.
Get to follow us.
Oh, yeah, right. I'm actually not, I'm only gonna answer questions if people have questions.
Oh, okay.
So I want to move now, after that, to our administrative reports and Principal Hausch. Yeah, follow that.
Hey, that sets it right up for me. I've got a lot to be proud of. So, of course, very proud of this, those sixth graders, and you know, they've really, every tournament they've gone to, they've placed. I mean, you know, out of, and I think middle school it's not as
6 to
big.
8.
Yeah, it's 6 to 8, so they're competing with you know, 3 grade levels, and but yeah, they've done really well. So, and I'm very proud of that program. Do you know what's going on right now? The board report is here. You know, some of the things that I'm really focused on right now, planning for this Day of Empowerment, which is our first you know, entry into like offering this kind of programming during the school day. We traditionally did the Boys and Girls Nights Out, which we kind of followed in the footsteps of the middle school and high school for that. And you know, John Gudgel and Aida and all the folks that have helped to bring that to our students. But we really felt like the middle school and high school, it's better to do it during the school day where every kid will be able to participate in 4th through 6th grade. So big goal for us this year is to pull that off, and we've done a lot of planning since we've gotten back from break. John and I have had 2 or 3 meetings. We've been kind of coordinating and getting some advice from the middle school and high school team, and it's just going to be awesome. I think we're going to have a similar experience, but we're also going to have our own unique experience. We have some things that we're doing that might feel a little bit different than the middle school and high school, more elementary-like. One thing that we're kind of toying with right now is how do we help our students, you know, present part of their work during this Day of Empowerment, because they've done some really cool projects around student empowerment. We've had the Who Am I kind of self-discovery project by 6th grade. 5th graders did a struggle project last year that was really relevant to, like, you know, facing adversity. Our 4th graders have done growth mindset and kindness projects, paying it forward. So those kinds of themes can really dovetail right into this Day of Empowerment piece. So we're going to see what we can do with having our students present and share their work as well. So it's pretty exciting. I think it's going to be great, and we're looking at February 12th right now as our date. So that's coming together. Social emotional learning project is something that I'm also really excited about. It was a goal from the beginning of the year. We did some work as a staff around just really learning more about social emotional learning, how we can better support our students, how we can you know, really embed strategies into what we do. And I think that we're already you know, pretty aware of this as a school and as a district. It's already on our radar. It's been there for a long time, but you know, there's students are coming in with a lot of needs, even more so, you know, than 5 or 10 years ago. So, you know, we're trying to grow with our students as well. But I'm leading kind of a project with the staff where they're going to be able to kind of create understanding and go through the motions as a student to kind of build understanding and figure out, you know, how we're going to update some of our strategies and affect our practice and just get into research and work around this. So that's something that kind of started this week, and it's going to be ongoing for the next couple of months, devoting a lot of staff meetings to this project. So it's cool because we're able to really get into a subject area that we need to understand better and learn more about, but we're also modeling the kind of project-based methods and planning and strategies that we use with our students. So it's kind of achieving 2 goals. So pretty exciting.
And this ties directly to the sort of district-wide goal we're focusing on, which is increasing rigor in project-based learning specifically. And so you'll find that's a big connection that we're doing now in both buildings, and it's heating up right now through March. So
You said February 12th for the Day of Empowerment. Do we, at Mills Lawn, do we have to know if that's before or after the next board meeting?
The February 14th is the.
It'll be before, so we'll hear back about,
Yes.
yeah, great, so that's the Tuesday of that week.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I'll be fresh off of that experience.
Splendid. Anything else? Mr. Hatter?
All right, thank you. I guess I have a couple updates before I actually jump into my reports and stuff that has come to us just really recently since I submitted this. One, our Mind Matters work that our students did last spring that was on display in our front hallway for the longest time. Went to the Springfield.
I think you should save that till last.
All right, I'll go do it.
Save the best part for last, that's a good one.
Back into my board report.
I think that's good. You need to hear that one last. You don't want
Okay, so.
Open it and then reiterate.
I love it. That's what he just did. That's what he just did.
Yeah, all right.
We have it to look forward to.
Yeah.
He hooked you in, enjoy your interest.
Yeah. All right. So our School Forest Festival. We had our School Forest Festival December 8th and 9th. It went really well. It's a really neat event. And when we think about the clubs that schools offer, I think this is a unique club. And I think it serves. It's another different club that potentially serves a different group of kids, which I think is really important. But we had our School Forest Festival, and it was our 71st annual School Forest Festival. So that club started in 1948, and they started with the School Forest Festival the very first year. So really, I guess, interesting history there. A nice quote from Mr. Day, who oversees our school forest. We had an excellent festival this year with good turnout in sales, cooperative weather, and of course, top-notch Burley school forest.
Oh, yes.
So
I saw Burley, every single one of them.
Yeah.
My tree came from the school forest.
There you go. So that was a good event, and it's always nice when you have an event outside that the weather cooperates.
Yes.
So the second thing I did want to talk about speech and debate, because I think it's important that we recognize kind of the efforts that we have many people putting into this to get this team off the ground. And January 26th, we will be hosting our first tournament. So that's Brian Hausch largely leading that push along with Jackie, but to host the first tournament here. And if you think about the undertaking that goes into hosting a tournament, that's really incredible. And then when you think about we really only have, I think, 2 or 3 high school team members and then this small handful of 6th graders right now. So to be willing to put in the energy to host a tournament, even with that small number of kids in our community. We have recently partnered with Brian more closely, and we've just done this huge push to try to increase numbers. And we've seen our numbers grow at the high school by probably 12 or 15 kids just in the last week. So Brian and some of our former students who graduated, like Jory, has come back, and they're actually going into our classes, like into our middle school live and performing arts class, and they're showing our students what speech and debate can look like. So I think when you hear speech and debate, so many people just imagine it's 2 groups of people debating back and forth, and they don't realize how broad and how many different topics or different competitions they participated. So that's been a huge gain at our middle school. And then last year in the spring, we had an open block, and we actually added a speech and debate class with the vision of that speech and debate class helping support the speech and debate club. And that is now becoming a reality where that class has started a project, and their final product is to compete in this tournament. So our students will actually be doing all the prep work during class, during the school day, and then they'll be able to compete in the tournament. So it's kind of like a natural feeder, and that was our vision, and that's our vision moving forward, is that our students can participate in speech and debate and do the prep work in class, which I think is a nice mix. But we're still looking for more people, more students to join, and then we're obviously looking for community members to volunteer on the 26th. The tournament, for us, it's important because it's a fundraiser that will actually support our kids getting to go out and participate in other tournaments. So there's a fee for every student that participates in every tournament. So by bringing all these other schools in and them paying a fee to participate in our tournament, it will cover the fees of our students to go out and participate in other tournaments.
I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah. So kudos to the people who are doing that. I look forward to the growth. I think for Mario, myself, and Brian, really just the idea of the potential that we have in this community and the skills that our kids develop coming through the elementary school and into the middle school and high school, where they're doing project work and they're having to communicate and collaborate and present in front of people, just the comfort they have doing that, there's no reason we shouldn't have a great speech and debate team. And I think that we're finally really taking that next step to building that. So that's exciting. Sound of Music, that's our 2019 spring musical. It will run March 8th through the 10th and the 15th through the 17th at the Foundry Theater. And then the theater department's going to be holding a sing-along. It's going to be a fundraiser to help get Girls Like That and Romeo and Juliet to the state competition. So they're going to be using the idea of the spring musical to try to raise money to cover those costs. So there's more information coming. Those details aren't worked out yet, but that's coming. So we're excited about that. Rehearsals just started on Sunday of this week, I believe. So our students are just stepping into the Sound of Music. And then, quick travel update, 27 band and orchestra students will be going to Chicago, so that's a trip that we approved, or that you guys approved, and that's going to be happening, 27 students going. Some interesting things happening as far as playing at a host school, and then we're going to be doing a program exchange where our students get to work with a different director, and then the students at that school get to work with Mr. Mayor, and then we all get to come together and play together. Do some sightseeing, obviously taking some of the good food in Chicago. So looking forward to that trip. And then we have 41 8th graders going to DC in early April. And this year we changed tour companies. So we've always driven through the night on the opening of that trip, and then the whole first day our kids are just burnt out. But the new tour company we switched to will not have their drivers drive through the night. So we're going to be leaving super early in the morning. So instead of a 3-day trip, it's really going to be a 4-day trip, and it came in cheaper than it's been in the past. So we're excited about just how some of the structural changes will support this trip, and then also this tour company is able to get us into places where the old tour company wouldn't get us. So our students will, I think, get to go to the African American Museum this year, and that's a big deal for us. And then there are Lori Sparrow-Knapp and Courtney O'Connor are co-planning a project where they're actually working with the Gettysburg battlefield guides, like the guides when you go there and you take a tour, and they have the guys that come out, typically guys, but people that come out there and like tell the story. Those people are actually going to be working with our kids to learn the story. So when our kids go to Gettysburg, they'll be experiencing something that they've been experiencing for a long time. So I think it'll really increase that experience, make it a better experience for them. So, and then just a side note, we have 15 people registered for the Global Connections trip. Assuming that it gets approved and actually happens, we have 15 people that have already committed to that for next school year. Now, back to the story of Mario coming out. So we have our Mind Matters work was at the Springfield Museum.
This is a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Shutdown does have something, like what happens for the 8th grade trip? I'm just curious.
What's that, with the government shutdown?
Yeah.
Oh, it can't go that long, can it?
That means we'll have anarchy, and we'll have bigger problems in the elections.
I'm not sure. It's a great question.
All right.
I can't answer.
Take over the government and
If for some reason, right, but yeah.
Well, and that can be really variable, because during some shutdowns, especially with museums, sometimes private funders,
We'll do,
it's not
yeah.
always guaranteed, but it has happened in the past. I mean, but when I was a federal employee, when there was a big shutdown in the 90s, the National Gallery of Art was kept open because of a private funder, and you just have to, you gotta wait and see.
Yeah, right.
But hopefully since it's April,
We'll see.
I mean, I know everything's
Yeah, right.
way hard to peg now compared to a regular government shutdown, but hopefully it wouldn't go that long. But sometimes things are opened to private
Right,
funding.
so you would still go, basically is what that would still be,
Yes.
might as well and see what's open. Gotcha.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
I've not heard anything different. Yep. Okay. So our Mind Matters work is on display at the Springfield Museum of Art, and one of our students who
Do you remember what that is?
You gotta go.
You guys remember what Mind Matters was?
Sure.
the big door panels
Yep.
where our art class, our advanced art class, partnered with our health class, and they looked at mental health topics, and then they portrayed them through art. And then on the flip side, the health students did all the statistics around the mental health topics.
Yes.
So the idea was trying to bring those mental health topics out in the open and have discussion about them, instead of having people feel like they had to live with them and hide them. So that work is on display at the Springfield Museum of Art.
Which opened at, it opened at K-12 Gallery.
It opened at K-12, and then they came back. Right.
And then it was in school for
Yeah, it was in
a couple
school.
times.
Now it's there, and
How
then I
long was it
think
at Springfield?
roughly a month.
Okay.
So we brought it, I think in early December, we brought it over.
Okay.
And then,
On a school bus.
on a school bus, yes.
I love that.
But then I think a group in Champaign County, they want to host it as well. And then after being in the Springfield Museum of Art, there's I think 2 groups up in Columbus that want to host it as well. That somebody went and saw it there and they thought it was powerful enough to go there to bring their places. I'm not sure who those groups are. I just found out about this literally at 3:30 today. But the really powerful thing was there was a group in Springfield that went through, and there was a young lady that went through that I think was diagnosed as bipolar, and when she saw Jude's artwork, she was so blown away by like how it captured what she was dealing with that she actually took a picture of it and then went and got a tattoo of Jude's artwork.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really, so it was really fascinating. One of the students said that we really had no idea the impact that our work is having on other people. So I just think it's really interesting when you think about something that kids did in our halls, in our classrooms, and the thought processes and the care and the skill, and then how that's impacting, like truly impacting people's lives, really impactful.
So this says it's only in Springfield till January 11th.
It's actually down already. So so they took it down a couple days early because the new exhibit arrived a couple days early. So, but it's we did get like their high resolution photos. So there's going to be something coming out on our school website, hopefully tomorrow. Ms. Lohmeyer just got the pictures today. But that's very cool. And then Ms. Lohmeyer also was excited because she's doing a health project with girls like that we talked about, I think, at the last board meeting. And she now has a partnership, and Girls Like That is going to run in its entirety at the Miami Valley School. And then our students are going to work with their students around the topics that's presented to Girls Like That.
We have one partnership already.
So we have a partnership where our kids are going to be going in and really exploring those topics. So it's just neat to see the passion from the teachers and the passion from the students playing out in a way that's really meaningful.
And then they're going to steal 20 of our students.
Well, the other way around.
Oh, the other way
Let's bring her back.
Look out there,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's exciting.
That's incredible. That's yeah. Great. Okay, I'd like to move on. Thank you to both of you for that. To 6.1, the financial report.
I don't really have a lot to report on. Not much happens in the month of December.
That's good.
I had 2 certificates of deposit come due, so our interest earnings for December were really high. And I'm talking with my investment advisor tomorrow, and we're going to redeposit that money in some form or fashion. The Max Saver Plus account has been getting 2.49%, which is like better than almost all of my certificates of deposit. So it's going to really make me think about how I'm going to invest this money, because I don't want to go out long term because interest rates are getting higher and higher. So it's been pretty exciting. But our U.S. bank account is still at 0.02, so I'm not very happy about that. We received 2 Charlotte Drake grants from Yale Springs Community Foundation, and those are run by the students. And I presented the tax budget, so I really don't have anything else for this one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Superintendents reports.
All right. Get back on the agenda here.
Do you want me to kill the lights in the same way again? Was that easier for everybody to read?
No, I'm not going to show anything
Okay.
on the screen at least.
All right.
Well, it's Board Member Recognition Month. January is Board Recognition Month, and it's a chance to thank board members who have worked for 12 months in our schools and done a ton of work. I'm going to stand close to Steve here because, that way when I'm talking, we're showing a board member at least. And they worked very, very hard for our schools, hours and hours outside of these meetings. So there's a lot of communication over email, there's a lot of communication face-to-face. There's a lot of different reading that they're doing. They're doing a lot of work outside the school day, trying to make some difficult and challenging decisions oftentimes that are in the best interest of the community. And so I don't think they get recognized enough. And so the beauty of this January board meeting is it's a chance for us to sort of recognize our school board for everything they do. And so I have these lovely certificates that we get every year. And you can frame them. I was going to say, Steve, this is not your first, this is your second.
No,
This is your first still?
It's only been a year for me.
Oh, how long have you been? You just
4 months, you should just put that in thirds.
Oh, that you didn't get one?
Correct.
That's, yeah, you're fine, yeah.
I had it
Just
built.
swore him in.
Yeah, I just got sworn in.
All right, well, Steve, here's your certificate for 1 year. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Will do.
Yeah, okay.
It's the first time it says All-Star Team, and it's in color.
Yes.
Those are
Steve Kahn, Dr. Kahn, thank you very much. Aida Merhamet, who incidentally, Aida was our board president for how many years in a row? 49th, I mean.
Well, I don't know about in a row, but certainly, I think 7 of the 14.
Woo! So, yeah, we should give her a round of applause.
And then of the others, vice president.
Yeah, wow. All right, TJ Turner, congratulations. They give you a court certificate. And Sylvia Ellison, thank you so much. So again, thank you to all of our board members for your efforts and everything you do for our schools. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be, I mean, my matters wouldn't happen. If it weren't for your courage, honestly. I think that's the case. It wouldn't have happened if it weren't for your courage to do what we're doing, and that's a big deal. I've talked to school boards and everywhere, and I talk to superintendents everywhere about the work we do in Yellow Springs, and they say, well, that's great, you can do it in Yellow Springs, but I'm never going to get my board to agree with that. And that's the truth, you know? So I think our community and our board, I think, courageously believes in what we're doing, and that's a really, really big deal. And so I greatly appreciate everything you do. Thank you. Okay, so next, negotiations. I just want to highlight a couple things. So we're going to be negotiating very soon with the Yellow Springs Education Association in the next month or so. We'll have our first negotiations meeting. Right now we're trying to get schedule some dates, and so we're looking at scheduling 3 dates in during the school day and then 3 dates outside of the school day if we have to go beyond 3 days at that point. And so we've selected 2 board members now to be part of that committee. The team will also consist of Don, our treasurer, and myself, and Matt Hausch is also going to be serving on that committee this year. And so usually we go back and forth with our principals, and so that'll be the plan for this year. So the board needs to schedule an executive session to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of what issues we want to bring to the table. What do we perceive the needs to be that we want to have as a discussion point with the YCA. As of right now, it looks like we may try for interest-based bargaining. I don't think Eli's totally confirmed on that yet. I think he's got work to do around that, but I think that's the goal, at least right now, and so we'll see if that's what happens. We'll know more over the next few weeks. So that's exciting. We're gonna meet and come together and work on that, and it should be good. I think we have a really good team. I think we'll do really well with it. The last few negotiations have been positive. I really have enjoyed the interest-based bargaining approach. It's been kind and cordial and honest, and all of those things have really helped to, I think, produce the best contracts we can for our schools and our teachers and the community. And so, I mean, because that's ultimately what the board is representing, is ultimately the community and what the needs of the community are. So we'll go forward from there. And so what I'm thinking is either at the next board meeting, either before or after the board meeting, we'll do an executive session. So I guess let Steve know what you want to do. And
well, I was going to just press you on that. The next board meeting is February 14th.
Yeah.
Is that too late? Should we be scheduling this a little bit?
So here's what I'll tell you. I will have a list of issues that I think we're important by then, and we will have vetted them, and we've already started to do a lot of that work ourselves already.
Okay.
And so what I would suggest is if board members have other issues that they know that are important, I would go through the contract, kind of think about things over the past few years. If there are things that you think we need to look at, write them down, send them to me, and we can incorporate them as part of that discussion, and then we can do a lot of that work in advance. or definitely, the worst case scenario, bring them to the meeting. And then we can talk about it in the executive session and
Okay, so
decide whether
but
we
you
want
think that
to incorporate it.
February 14th will still be
I think
okay?
we should be fine. What do you think, Don?
Remember what our dates were
Well,
when they
it
started. I
starts
think it was
2 weeks
after
later,
the, you know, so I.
Yeah, I thought
do after
they
that.
had
So are
pushed
the
back
dates
to
added
Last week of
to-
February.
last week of February. Okay, so I just want to make sure because that will make scheduling easier if we just keep it the executive session at our regularly scheduled meetings. So that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my concern is that it's February 14th. It's like,
Yeah, that's why I thought you bring it up
know
too.
I have things I'm gonna want to do after the meeting that I'm sure my wife will.
We can do it early if you want. We can start the
So I'm
meeting early.
wondering if we are gonna have an executive
Yeah.
session, make that an early one.
It's a good idea, yeah.
Okay.
If you all, the board wants to
Is
do
there something going on February 14th?
I actually have to check to make sure
I want to miss, I had to scroll through my calendar to figure out what that's was. My poor wife.
TJ, you want to make a note of that day, okay?
September, I brought like.
I have an alarm that goes off on February 14th, it says.
All right then. Okay, so for the time being, we will count on an early executive session on February 14th. And in the meantime, board members will get whatever concerns, issues, comments, questions they have about the contract and any other issues to Mario and Dawn in the interim.
Sounds good. Okay. So the next issue is athletic complex. We are, so as part of sort of the charge we received from the Board of Education through, I think it was a meeting that we had, it was a work session, I believe, and definitely felt encouraged that we should at least proceed forward with looking into the athletic complex as try to really make some changes there. There is a significant need, so I'll just talk briefly about that for the community to know because they may not be aware of the need. There's a significant need for major maintenance work at the athletic complex, and so what we're looking at are issues around the actual track itself. So the surfacing of the track is there's a lot of holes, cracks, you name it, all over the urethane track, and underneath the urethane, the asphalt is also cracking and creating some issues, which we think is affecting the urethane on top as well, and it's creating a bunch of problems. And then we think the cracking is happening at least partially because there's a drainage problem at the track itself. And so we need to get a real evaluation of the drainage issue. Number one, redo the asphalt on the track. Number two, once we solve the drainage problem. Number three, redo the urethane surface on top. And then number four, the other problem with the track issue is that we have mowers that have gone, equipment, landscape equipment that have gone back and forth over it, and oftentimes, because there's a lip between the surface and the turf, often they go over, and as they're going over, they mess the track up and it creates issues for us. So what you need is a runway, essentially. So we need a runway on both sides of the urethane track that's wide enough so that you can get from asphalt to track to asphalt to grass. And so that's the idea, and most tracks are created that way. Ours doesn't have that, so that'll be part of the process of what we look at. So that's the track piece. The second issue is actually on the infield, or where the grass is for our soccer field. We still have football goalposts there. I think I feel fairly confident in saying that we may not have football back in Yellow Springs for quite a while. And so we're feeling like we need to remove the goalposts, replace them with real soccer goals that can go in and out, and really do what we need to do as appropriate for that field. Further, the actual field itself has, partly because of, I think, some of the drainage issues, there are very smaller holes actually on the field that are problematic, and the surface has some problems with leveling, and so we need to really level the surface, fill the holes, potentially consider a resod. I'm not sure if that's something we can afford, but at least look at it and see what the costs are for those kinds of things, and look at that as a whole separate issue. The third issue related is there are two major drains on opposite sides of the field between the track and the actual infield. They're actually on the infield, but outside of the lines for the soccer field, where somebody could easily walk and step in it and break an ankle, and if it's dangerous, we need to change that and get that fixed as well. So those are all kind of part of that process. In addition, we have the issue with, if you've been to any of the games, you're aware that the problem with the scoreboard, really just, it's an old scoreboard that needs to be changed out and replaced. And so our intention is to replace that scoreboard and figure out a way to hopefully replace it with some funding, private funding, maybe some potential donors or sponsors that could help us support that with that. And so we're working on those issues now. Nate and Don are part of that work. In addition to that, there's issues with the press box and sound in the press box, and you've heard some of the sound system. It's not very good. It doesn't work well, especially when the kids play music, which is something they like to do out there. It comes out really bad. It doesn't always work. Sometimes even curse words come out. It's just not good.
Somehow they're clear.
Right? Those
That's the clear part.
That part is clear. Yeah.
Boom.
Right.
Everything else.
So and then there's a leak on the roof of the press box. There's just lots of issues we need to deal with there. And so in the process, we're also looking at then seeing what the cost could be to actually put bathrooms back behind the stand, which is probably what should happen, which is 98% of the stadiums in the world have bathrooms on site as opposed to having to go out of the stadium and go into the school to use the bathroom and then come back. So we're just looking into what the cost of that would be. We think that's probably the most expensive expense potentially, especially if you have to go underground to find a sewer drain, and that issue could be a real challenge. So we'll have to see what that costs, but we're at least looking at it. The last piece of it is the fencing around the school. If you've seen any of the fencing, it's just god-awful. I'll just leave it at that. Needs to change. We need to improve our fencing and actually need to build a big wall, big beautiful wall.
Please stop.
And some slats. No, we're
We're not
gonna.
going to reopen this board.
We're gonna get Greenan to pay for it.
So anyway, So anyway, yeah.
Pay for it, Steve.
So, the fence is going to be I'd say but it's actually going to be a much better looking fence than what we have now. We're going to get black sort of matting on the actual fence. So what happens is that actually protects the fencing chain link longer, and so it'll be better. It looks better too. And the idea is we're going to totally enclose it so that the fence will go against the building and then close it like it's supposed to. And then the other side is going to go all the way to the bus barn and stay enclosed. And so what that does is provide protection, better security within the facility so that everybody has to come in and out through the main gate. The main gate's going to be a better quality gate, so it'll be a gate that actually opens and closes with some nice signage there as well, and that's kind of the idea. And here's the beautiful part of that. Ohio's going to pay for it. No, we have, so there's a 3-to-1 match on a grant right now that's actually considered a safety grant, up to $40,000, but fencing is an option within that grant. So we're going to apply to the grant, and Donna's working on it right now. She may have already sent it in, right?
I need to get the quote. It's not really like your typical grant. It's
Yeah.
from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation, and it's connected to safety and security.
Great.
So it's not a
Splendid.
big, you don't have to write a lot, and it fell under one of the categories that make Mario very happy, so I'm gonna get it done.
So we can kill two birds with one stone in many ways with this grant, and it's a really great opportunity for us to at least start that project rolling quickly, and they want to get it done in winter. So at least the
Even
fencing
better.
will be the first piece, and then we can get the other pieces done as we go forward, and that'll be taken care of separately. We won't have to make that part of our budget, and it'll be an easier challenge.
So what you're saying is you may have successfully gotten someone else to pay for our fence.
I did get somebody else to pay for the wall. So that's that, and then the other piece, we are working with a private firm that essentially they do all of the contract management for the entire project. So they're project managers essentially and they're architects, and so their job will be to do all the design work around the field, subcontract everybody that would be involved with working on it, manage all that for us. I mean, theoretically, you could do it ourselves. The problem is we don't have any expertise in-house really when it comes to doing all of that together.
Yeah.
And that's a project you don't want to invest a lot of money into if you don't really know. You have somebody who's an expert that knows what they're doing. There's a company called Kleinman's out of Cincinnati that does this work regularly. And so right now they're giving us a quote for an evaluation to go and evaluate it and do all that process and then to sort of represent us in
Mario.
this work. My computer just died. Try to turn it back on.
Can I just interject? I don't want to belabor this, but having been involved in some of these discussions, I just want also to let people know the root of many of these problems is this, it seems to be this drainage situation. The drainage system for the field was put in, I think, in the mid-1960s. So it is 50 plus years old at this point, and it just seems not to be doing the job. And so, just so that we're clear about this, this is about the boys and girls track team in the spring. It's about the boys and girls soccer team in the fall. But it's also about lots of the community members who use that track for running, for walking, for exercising, and so forth. Because we've always kept that open. Summer track as well. So this actually is a project that affects a lot of our students, but also families and community members as well. And it just seems like this drainage system has come to the end of its useful life, and that seems to be the root of a lot of this. So I'll stop with that, but this is a real issue.
Do we have a time frame on it at all? Like when it would start and when you get it all done?
The hope is to have it done by the end of summer.
Okay.
So that's the idea.
That'd be great.
The most recent discussions we've had.
So the stands themselves are physically
So the stands would stay,
structurally sound and
just
everything?
as best we know. We haven't brought an engineer in to figure that out, but I don't know of any issues there.
Right. Okay.
So everything that we're going to be doing is just everything I just pointed out. So that would be the maximum we would do on this particular project right now.
When do you hope to have quotes on?
Probably the next, so he's going to do the evaluation first,
Okay.
and then he'll bid it out for quotes, and he'll give us an idea of what he thinks it's going to cost based off of that. So probably in the next few weeks we should know a lot more.
Great.
And by the way, that, because it's going to be such an expensive project, that's something that comes to the board for approval. So just FYI, you'll be seeing that in the next few months before any of the work stuff. I mean, the evaluation, I think we can do
So when we
that.
talked about it a while back, there was sort of this huge range because we didn't have enough information, but it seemed clear it would be very expensive.
Yeah, I think the rule now is $40,000 or $50,000. $50,000 before it has, any expense over 50 has to come to the board specifically for approval, just FYI, for your knowledge. Facilities update, yeah, please.
Does the drainage on those practice fields have anything to do with impacting the area you're talking about? Because we talked about that as an issue, and they're so close to each other, and you start augmenting one thing and the other thing gets impacted, so.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Will you make sure that when they do this evaluation that concern is raised? Because I haven't noticed big floods over there on the practice fields recently, but certainly,
Previously.
8 months ago.
You get heavy rain, you
still get it,
always.
Okay.
For soccer. I think the high school field is elevated compared to everything else, but it's a good question if you create more runoff.
It drains both ways,
Yeah.
so. And if you actually get to the end of those soccer fields, the grading is significant, and it's becoming increasingly a problem.
I just hate to invest all that money in.
Right, if you've got water coming from the other direction, sure.
That's worth checking out. Any other questions about the athletic complex? Okay, so the last issue is the big one, I think, for today, to me, anyway, is the facilities update and just some kind of talking a little bit about where we're going with this, and took up a lot of time on my board report if you had a chance to read it. A couple things that I think are important for the community to know. We are going to establish the School Facilities Task Force, is what we're going to officially call it, and it's going to consist of 11 active, I'm going to call them voting members essentially, but for lack of a better word, they're the decision makers ultimately on what comes out of the committee. And that group of 11 folks will be a diverse representation of our community. The goal is to have 100% of the folks live in the school district. We'll have students, at least one student, maybe two students in that group, parents, teachers represented, senior citizens within the community represented, business leaders, experts. And so we'll have a pretty big swath of community members that are part of that committee that are really represented. I also think it's important to note that we are intentionally looking for community members who, those who were supportive of the levy, but also those who were against the levy. And I think it's really important to have a broad perspective and swath of people. So we have intentionally reached out to 2 individuals who were actively against the levy as part of the campaign, and they're going to be members of the committee because we think their leadership is valuable and important, and we think that they both have a perspective of not being against helping the schools improve our facilities, but more against that particular levy. And so We want to bring them together with other folks within the community to hopefully have a bend towards compromise and working together and coming up with a real solution that the community will support. And so the hope is with a committee like that might be able to ultimately they might be able to come up with the ultimate solution. What you'll notice is I did not say that the committee consisted of any board members. I did not say that the committee consisted of any administrators. We're not going to be the decision makers on that committee ultimately. There will be 4 ex officio members of that committee in addition to the 11, and there'll be more sort of resources or assistance to that committee. Non-decision makers, ultimately people who will sit in the room and listen and ultimately help the committee get what they need, give them information, whatever we need to do, be a resource or liaison between the school, district, and the Board of Education and the committee. So those 4 ex officios are going to be the superintendent, myself, the treasurer, Don, a school board member who I think TJ is going to be, in addition to the zillion other things he's doing, that as well. And school architect, builder, I'm asking Mike Richley to do that for us. He's actually, we just talked today about it some more, so he is in as well to be part of that. And so all of those folks are just going to be there to help and support the committee with what they need. We're going to have 1 trained facilitator. I just sort of gave the nod yesterday to Melinda Marsh, or Mel Marsh as she goes by, who runs Acorn Consulting, I think, and they do a lot of work. She had a lot of great recommendations. She worked with the Ridgewood School, Clark State, a number of different institutions around here. She was actually, I think she did a radio program at one point on WISO within Yellow Springs. So she comes pretty well decorated and recommended, and I think she has the right skills to help this committee move forward. So I'm excited about that possibility. So she's on board as well. I think an important point to make, and I think this was, actually I had a discussion about this with the YS News, and I appreciate them giving their insights and thoughts on this, because we're going to do what I think they suggested, which is that the task force meetings are all going to be open to the public and the media, and so I imagine we'll do them in here maybe, but the public and the media will all be able to come into the meetings and watch the proceedings and discussion, but we want to make sure this work is completely transparent from the beginning, and I think that's an important piece. While meetings will be open to the public, I think it's important to know that the task force has got to do its work without interruption, and so comments from the general public during meetings, while desired, will be reserved for a couple of meetings specifically indicated and designed for that purpose. So generally speaking, the meetings won't be open for public comment, but we will have opportunities for public comment, obviously, as we go forward and we move and start creating draft documents and things of that nature. But we also encourage community to share and gather feedback with or from the task force members, any school leaders, school board members in between meetings, because I think that's really important as we're going through this process, that community can interject and give their feedback to those task force members. The task force will report out their progress regularly we're talking about getting minutes and putting our minutes on our website, the school district, as well as writing reports out regularly to the YS News, so the community can kind of see as the meetings progress what happens, how they're going, and maybe write editorials, and we'll talk to the news about what ideas they have for doing that too. I think it can be helpful to have whatever works. 2 meetings per month as of right now, so there may be subcommittee meeting as meetings as needed. The meetings are not going to start till March. And I think that's kind of news to the board, I think, a little bit, and it's unfortunate. That's the earliest we can do. Yep. The reason it's the earliest we can do it is the Fanning Howie, who's doing the facilities assessment, said it's going to take them 4 months to do a facilities assessment. So it's a significant amount of time to actually do the assessment, and this committee is going to need that assessment fairly early on in their work if they're really going to make progress. And so I don't want to start the committee in January and then have 2 months where they're working and they want the assessment and they don't have it. So super important for them to get that assessment at least early on in the first few meetings of their work, and they should be able to have it by then. So just a couple things about the purpose and the deliverables of the task force, I think, for the community to be aware of. So the goal of the task force is, 1, to identify the essential elements our children need in their schools over the next 50 to 80 years. Secondly, to evaluate the status of our current facilities. Thirdly, to create a draft plan of action to address the disconnect between the schools our children need and what our current facilities can provide. And then fourth, to work with the community and the Board of Education to revise the plan of action. So they'll come up with a draft plan, work directly with the Board of Education and the community through meetings in the community and with the board to revise the plan, make changes as necessary. And then fifthly, to present a final plan of action to the community and the Board of Education for approval and action. So then they'll have a final plan to present to the board. The board presumably would either approve or not approve the plan based on what they see. And if they approve it, then we move forward with the plan as it is, as it suggests we do things. The task force move at a steady pace towards a solution. So the hope is that they could have a final action plan completed within 4 to 6 months of their first meeting date. The goal is to begin the work again in March. It looks like early March will probably be when it starts. I think it's a representative body of the community. So without members of the Board of Education or school leadership as decision makers on the task force. I want to emphasize that again because I think that's important. They're intentionally, as I said, have members who were yes voters and no voters on the committee, but members who also have a strong desire to work together towards a win-win solution for our community. So there were a lot of people who were interested in being part of this committee, but just didn't quite work out because I think we really were looking for folks who could compromise and work together and work well on the committee. I think that was super important for us. So I'm going to get back to folks and let us know where we are. We haven't finalized the committee yet, but we're still working on it. The ex-officio members, just to be clear again, are on the task force solely as observers and supporters of the task force. Again, our job is to find and provide information as requested by the committee for their work and present as needed to the committee or requested by the committee. And they also operate as liaisons between the task force and the Board of Education. That's particularly the case for TJ and myself and Don. And Mike told me he's planning to allot some time to report to the board every couple of meetings as well on progress from what he's seeing. So that sums up my superintendent update. Are there any questions or comments about that last piece?
Yeah, I appreciate the thoughtfulness of putting the plan together. I think that's going to be, I think that's a great move in general, just to get past that last levy and understand all the issues and kind of wrap it up and move forward.
I've heard a lot of positive comments from people in the community that really are glad and happy we're moving forward and we're not just kind of forgetting about it, that we're continuing the work because people feel like it's important. So I think there are different opinions about what should happen, but I think folks feel that something needs to happen and there's a genuine care and interest in our kids and doing what we can to support our schools. So.
Well, there was a, not to belabor the point, but I mean, looking back at that levy committee or levy process, thank you. I couldn't find the right word there. And then this past election where the levy was passed for the Greene County Career Center rate. Obviously, the town overwhelmingly supports education, and so I think it's really important to go through this process and include as many voices as possible. So I mean, there was some allegations back and forth that people who were against it didn't care about education, but clearly that's not true. So it's just, like you said, finding the right solution so it's win-win for everybody. So,
yeah, I'm excited. What I think is really important here is that this is a total reset.
Yeah.
We're hitting the reset button. And we're starting from scratch with a completely clean slate. Totally transparent, totally open. I have no idea what this committee is going to come up with. We don't have a clue, what they're going to come up with. So it's kind of exciting, right? Because anything is possible as a result of this. But ultimately, I think my hope is that the community will get the schools they want. And so whatever the school community wants, that's what they're going to get. And so the hope is that we can deliver the schools the community wants and get a very clear perspective about what the community wants through this process and then deliver on it. Because that's ultimately the way it should be. The schools are the community, belong to the community, and the community should get what they want with their schools. And so let's hope that the best outcome comes from this process. And I'm excited because, again, it's a clean slate, reset button, and we'll see where it goes.
So along those lines, we're going to talk about having the facility appraisal being done and given to the committee. Are we also going to have some dedicated time to not only PBL, but the needs of the 21st century learner and how things need, because that's got to be a really important part of that process. And I think there was a real misconception about what PBL was, especially in conjunction with what the old middle school design was years ago, and those are very different things. And I'd be happy to talk to any part of that, in terms of my experience out in the real world. I'm totally convinced why PBL is the way to go in general. But yeah, I think anything you can do to educate the committee on that aspect, and then what you're seeing, because I've walked in your office and you've got great ideas, and you're looking at these other schools and facilities and what they're bringing to the table with the facility and how that's so transformational. So I think that's got to be a big part of that discussion, at least early on, so people know.
So one of the things that's really important, the reason I think Fanning and Howie specifically is a good company to do this work, at least in terms of the facilities assessment, is part of the work they're going to do for us is looking at the educational adequacy of the facilities and the cost of having an educationally adequate facility for kids in 2019. And so that will be incorporated as a data point to share with the community and the members of this committee of how much it will really cost to bring it up to pedagogical standards that we have and that we want for our community and our school district. So that's why that first piece is so important, TJ, which is the question of what do we want our schools to be?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I think there is a disconnect in our community about what we want our schools to be. And so this goes back to the idea of a 10-year strategic plan versus a 5-year strategic plan. And I think having that discussion and those kinds of conversations are going to be really important at the beginning so that we're all clear about what we want our schools to look like. And then we can see what the disconnect is. But yeah, so the plan's going to have the educational adequacy piece and all of the costs. So I asked them to produce costs of retrofitting the current facilities to meet the needs of 21st century learners as well. So, and the cost of building new. So just get all that data together so we'll see what that could be. And so the community will have it all in front of them. We'll know what the costs are and a realistic assessment in 2019 dollars. And the community hopefully will. So our job is my job is to give that information to them and make sure they have it. And then the community has to decide, what they want to do with that information. So.
I'd call it a soft reboot. You're still going to use all the information previously received by the community.
Yeah.
So there's still an understanding that we got all that information.
Yeah.
So it's not a full reset, because a full reset almost sounds like
we're
ignoring everything that was previously said, and that's not the case here. I do want to make sure the community's understanding that with all of the information previously gathered, we feel like we have a better place that we're beginning. And so I think it's a reboot more than it is a reset.
Yeah.
And it's because I see the work you put in, I'd rather make that be known that what's been said hasn't been ignored at all. And so we're starting from a place of knowledge and not a full reset in which everyone has to sort of redundantly repeat themselves of what they were saying a couple years back. So,
sure.
Right.
I think the only thing that's really a reset, though, is this idea that we're not coming with any plans. We are starting with a blank slate. There are no plans that are being offered.
And I'm going to be clear.
That's
a great point.
We have a great amount of knowledge, but there are no plans. We don't.
Right.
It's totally a blank slate. So we'll see.
There was a PBL project, I guess, years ago where the students actually designed learning spaces. It was
a Mills Lawn project with the 4th graders who are probably now 7th graders or 8th graders, maybe even. I can't. 7th graders, yeah.
I know it kind of was humorously thrown out there by the community at times, like, well, I'll have this be a big PBL project, and the kids will build their new school. but I think there is value in talking to them, because you get a bunch of adults around the table. My experience in high school was thankfully long ago and over. Even just having their input about how their learning is so different, because I see how my kids learn different than I ever did. And so I don't even know that I've got the best appreciation of what the kids today need for learning, and then even beyond.
Here's one more piece I forgot to include. Mel Marsh wants to come to the February board meeting, and she would like to take 30 minutes of your time at the meeting to ask questions or to get your feedback about what you specifically want her to be doing as a facilitator on this project. I've shared with her everything I know of, but there could be things that the board specifically is interested in her
Great.
making sure and emphasizing as part of the work.
30 minutes comes out of your time. So we're clear about that?
So
The first rule of the ring.
Yep.
Would be part of the February, that would be part of the February board meeting?
That's where we're at right now,
I think,
so we
well,
can change it.
if this committee is gonna start to meet in March,
Yeah.
then,
Or there needs to be a work session.
or there needs to be a work session,
But she's pretty firm on this idea of meeting with board. I think it's a smart idea,
Yeah.
yeah.
okay. Thank you for all of that, and no, that's great work, and much appreciated. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things going on right now, a lot of balls in the air. So I want to move us on to the consent calendar, 7.2 to 7.5. I want to make two quick notes. First of all, 7.5, just, so that we're paying attention, this needs to get approved if, we've already heard that students are signing up for this trip, so if we don't approve it, they don't get to go. 7.3 is the resolution of support for the Agraria Trail, and you've been sitting here very, very patiently. You deserve a prize here. We had a presentation, was it last board meeting or was it in November?
Early November.
November
We had a
meeting.
couple of presentations about.
Yeah, so
the topic, yeah.
I just want to stress for board members that this is a resolution of support, it is not a resolution of commitment of any kind.
You want to show your product?
Yeah, and so just as a reminder, why don't we just put that
Yeah.
graphic just on camera quickly, but this is essentially the same thing we have discussed. I'll hold it up here.
I don't know because it's working.
You want to give it to me, Stephanie?
Yeah, that's right.
And then you're like,
Exactly.
then you can zoom in. There you go.
Okay,
Straight
now let me
to the
see.
wall.
Just reiterate what it is.
So to be
This is-
clear, that green line that goes to the yellow at the end is curved in the conversation we had most recently. That green line is a straight line to the end of the property. So it doesn't cross over a good portion of the high school grounds, just FYI.
Okay,
Is it working?
got it.
It's a little delay, but I can see it over there, yeah. Thank you
You can take it.
for the image reiteration. It just might have been a while since people saw that.
Yeah.
So, right, so if there are in fact any questions about this, you have been very generously, I'm sorry, remind me of your name?
Dave Diamond.
Dave, thank you, has been here for any questions about that. And then finally, 7.4, as I have said to all of you verbally, but we'll do this officially, I'm going to cycle off of the Greene County Career Center Board, and my position will be filled by the other Steve. That's continuity. Like I said, so it will always be a Steve on the Greene County Career Center Board. And that's 7.4 in this agenda. So do I have a motion for these?
I'll move.
Second.
Thank you. Mari, do you need to add anything to any of this?
No, sir.
Okay. Questions, comments? I just want to say thank you, Steve, for willing to step into this position. So right, and I don't know if you get a trip to Rome.
Yeah.
From that or not, but we can talk about that later. All right, then let's call the roll, please.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
TJ?
Yes.
Aida?
Yes.
Great, so then we'll move on to the personnel portion of the consent calendar, and this is 7.6 through 7.9. We have resignations, leaves of absence, the usual kinds of employments. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thanks you all. That's very interesting.
The usual kinds of non-renewals and co-curricular contracts that we do seasonally. Is there anything we need to know about any of those?
Nope.
Any questions or comments from the board on these? Then I'm going to call the roll on that. Oh, I'm sorry, we need a motion.
So moved.
Yes.
I'll second.
So now we'll call the roll on that.
Steve won.
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
TJ?
Yes.
Aida?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Splendid. Point 8, board communications. Our first item is to set a date for the 2020 update. Now, we talked about this, and we talked about whether, given everything else going on right now with the start of negotiations, the start of the facilities
Look on the calendar, I'm sorry.
committee, do we want to try to set that date now, or do we want to put that off for a few months before, as other things settle in and clear up? I don't know how people feel about
I
this.
guess I'm wondering what the date is. I mean, this is for setting up a committee?
Particular file.
No, this is for
particular file to give an update on, semi-annual
It's
update
one
on
of
this,
your
just on the annual
oh,
2020 plan.
Yeah,
But do we want to do that with all these other
that's what I was
things
wondering. Do we want to put it off till
developing I don't know,
June?
maybe we do.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's probably a smart idea. I mean, in many ways, it could be that final, not our final, we should have more, but it might be one of the last 2020 reports because
Sure.
we're gonna start moving into planning the next one.
Right. So should
Maybe
we?
it's almost like a report that's gonna be a big one because we sort of talk about the work we still have to do, if you will, for our next strategic plan, or what we know, maybe some takeaways.
So our agendas in June, July tend to be a little lighter. Is that the right time to do it? Do you feel like you'd rather do it as a work session, keep it out of the board meeting, the regular board meeting altogether?
But they say yes? I don't think so. You need to be there for that.
Oh, I was just, Jack was telling me a joke.
I'm gonna send you the
We all want to hear it.
You just mentioned July as a possible time.
And
You know,
then
actually-
those are sometimes where you're down a board member too.
I'm just throwing out ideas out there.
See, I'm wondering if we could sort of have an end and beginning conversation at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if September is a good time. Only because that's when people are back in town, or maybe the end of August or something, after school starts or something like that. And it's getting some interesting looks from.
The end of August, sounds like a great meeting.
I mean, I can do it over the summer, but people aren't gonna be, it'll be just for the board really ultimately.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
we can just do it then and then plan something
And
else
then
for
see.
September, for August, you know?
Well, because whenever you do it, if this were its own meeting, it would still be videotaped, right?
Yeah, we can videotape it,
I
yeah.
mean,
Let's just look for June.
June? Okay, so why don't we tentatively set that up for June? That makes sense to me. Great.
or July.
Sure. That's right, late on a Friday. 8.2, I will now give my last
So we're
Green
not gonna
County.
look at, we're just gonna set that up sometime
We're
later.
gonna put that in the
Okay.
pickle file, yes.
Sounds good, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Exactly.
Got it.
All right.
Green County Career Center reports. So I went to my last meeting. I've served on the board now for 4.5 years, and it has been a real pleasure. I have learned a great deal. What I can report from the meeting last night is that we had a presentation from the folks who are going to sell the Career Center bonds at the end of the month.
Wow.
To push this project, the building project, forward. The bottom line is that we are on schedule. Now, it's early days, but we are on schedule to open for the school year 2020 in the new facility.
Really?
That's where we're at.
That's speaking.
1920, 2021.
Yep. It was fall 20.
Fall 20.
Fall 20.
That's still fast.
And yes, so we will see if this all happens, but we are marching ahead. That's, I think, the big item from last night. The other item is that the board is experiencing a fair bit of turnover. In addition to my departure, we have a new member from Greenview, and we will have a new member from Xenia once the Xenia board decides who to replace Bill Spar with, since Bill passed away. I want to thank my GCCC board members because they've been tremendous to work with, and I've really enjoyed it. And it is with a certain amount of regret that I'm cycling off that position, and I'm delighted that Steve will be picking that up for Yellow Springs. Well, I could also mention that they too are in a contract year, but those negotiations got signed, sealed, delivered last night. They did their negotiations in December. We approved, the association approved their contract early this month. We approved the contract, the board approved the contract last night at our meeting there. So that's also not something that Steve has to deal with for 3 more years.
That's a good deal right
Yep.
there.
New building.
That was the job I meant to volunteer for.
Yep.
Place to be.
Other board member items you want to share?
I think I just want to say I had said that I was ready to step off as an officer. And we did sort of consider other possibilities, but because of what's going on in people's lives and their commitments, and two of our board members, if they're going to run in the fall for reappointment, need to put energy into that, and so I was willing to do that again, and I appreciate your support, but I had mentioned to the community I was ready to sort of step back, and I would have done that had there been, if it would have worked out better, but I'm happy to do this, but I'm also appreciative of everybody taking all of their roles and positions seriously, and appreciate the fact that hopefully TJ and Sylvia will run in the fall.
Thank you very much.
Well, I guess I will add a very large thank you to Aida and to Sylvia for having served as president and vice president. Aida, of course, as we've mentioned already, has served in that role for many years and done so really admirably, and has kept this board running well and smoothly. And Sylvia, thank you very much for the vice presidential work that you've had to do in your time there. So personally, thank you very much for all of that work as well.
Thank you to everyone who's stepping up into new responsibilities.
It sounds like it's a, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I will so move.
Second. Actually, I haven't been able to.
So that's right, let's call the roll on that then.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Okay, and we are adjourned.